So, Alex, let me just reset just briefly. You told us in the last segment about these two companies that control 70% of the dialysis business in this country. They are pushing people into private insurance because the Medicare reimbursements rates is about $250 for every dialysis session. And private insurances can be up to 4 times that amount, $1,000. So this AB 290 that is being proposed in the California legislature that they are spending millions of dollars to prevent from passing, what does that AB 290 say specifically?
Well, what it says is basically that that the reimbursement rate for private insurance would be pegged to the Medicare rate. So the kind of price gouging that you're seeing with that $1,000 treatment cost would be pegged to something a little bit more like the Medicare cost, which is $250, as you mentioned, and it prevents this arrangement where these institutions that are funded by the dialysis companies encourage patients to leave their Medicare and get on private insurance, which kind of facilitates this whole scheme from the outset.
So, all right. So I want to be explicit with this because this story is amazing. These two companies fund like what I think you could call as a charity, right? It's like the American Kidney Foundation. And it sounds like, the American Cancer Association or something like that. And this American Kidney Foundation seems to be basically a pass-through where the companies get a tax break for contributing to them, and then they subsidize private insurance. So maybe they'll pay, I don't know, $200 of the insurance cost. The insurance cost may cost, I don't know, $1,200. But that $1,200, that other $1,000 that the patient lays out ends up generating thousands of dollars of profit for the companies. Is that right?
More or less, yeah. So the American Kidney Fund will encourage patients who are covered on Medicare to leave that Medicare coverage for private insurance, and the sweetener for them or for the patients is the fund basically covers the premiums. They pay the insurance premiums, so there's no individual expenditure for the patient that is any more significant than what they'd be paying on Medicare. But when they come through the door with that private insurance, then it's the dialysis outpatient centers that then get to bill at that sweetheart rate. So it's not something that extorts the patient so much as it basically bilks the insurance companies. And the issue with that is then, when the insurance companies incur higher costs, they're not just eating that, they're passing that on to every other person who has insurance, and that, leads to higher premiums and that other cost-related health issues down the line.
So if I'm a patient who is covered by Medicare for dialysis, and the American Kidney Fund comes to me and they say, you can get private insurance cost-free to cover this. Why do I do that? Do I do that because that private insurance is going to cover a bunch of other stuff, including my my dialysis? Or is it just that I am been trained by the market to believe that for some reason private insurance is going to get me better coverage than Medicare?
It's an interesting sales pitch. Yeah, I'm having not gone through it. I'm not sure exactly what the clincher is, but I think generally speaking, what is being told to these patients is that they're going to get the same treatment that they get on Medicare. Right? It's the same dialysis treatment that they'd be otherwise getting. It's at no extra special cost to them. Their personal expenditure remains the same, and perhaps down the road, something will happen where it will behoove them to have private insurance, and whether or not that's the case, it's hard to know. But it's that's I think is basically the sales pitch. There's the downside is minimal, and the upside is unknown. So. Why not?
Right. It doesn't cost me anything. I might as well get that coverage. Medicare will still be there if something goes south here with this. So essentially, the numbers, if I understand it from reading your piece, the companies donate $250 million, is it, to this American Kidney Fund? how much of American Kidney Fund's operating expenses or their endowment, how much of that is a function of that $250 million that they get annually from these two dialysis companies?
It's about 80%. So the roughly $250 million that is contributed by these two companies as charitable donations represents about 80% of the fund's total donor base, and so it's a significant percentage.
I mean, this is, and so they fund the fund. The fund then buys insurance for all of these patients, and then they get reimbursed when they go for dialysis. 80% of them are going to end up going to these private companies. Does the fund sort of weed out? Do they focus on areas where these two companies operate?
There's been some reports. The New York Times has done some reporting on this, and there have been lawsuits alleging certain things that there may be favorable treatment towards those two companies. It's something that I haven't gotten into personally, or haven't looked at that closely, but it's definitely an element of it. There have been whispers for a long time that would be that is the case, and obviously it's wouldn't be something that would be impossible to believe, but it's there have it's an ongoing. I think there are ongoing investigations into whether or not that's the case.
So these two companies, they put $250 million into this fund. The fund buys insurance, and then it kicks off profits of billions of dollars annually for these companies. That is an amazing. I'm sorry, it's a scam. I mean, that's essentially some type of kickback scheme, essentially. I mean, on some level, and in the end, it's all the people who buy insurance who are getting saddled with this bill, when in fact it could be a Medicare picking up this coverage at a much cheaper price. So I understand why they're fighting this. This is you're right that this is a big caveat too for single payer, because we're going to see like these companies will game the system any way they can.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah. And they've gotten over the last handful of years, have gotten used to some pretty remarkable profits. And it's one of these things where there is a reason healthcare is so expensive in the United States, why it, far surpasses peer countries in terms of cost. And this is just one very small example of that, in the ways in which these procedures can be gamed and these operations can be gamed to extract massive profits. And it's something that I think, we'll start seeing on a larger scale the more the debate over single payer advances in the national arena. Well, this is certainly not a unique situation.
Well, that's sort of amazing to contemplate. I mean, there's so much waste in this system. And by waste, I just mean this is profiteering. I mean, this is just a scam that's set up so that these guys can profit more on the same procedure that they're getting lower reimbursement rates on. It has nothing to do with the quality of the care for the patients. This is why our healthcare costs so much, because essentially you have a whole network, it feels like, of providers and insurers who are just basically milking the taxpayer or just the patients. Alex, fascinating piece. Thanks so much for coming on and talking about it.